making wise decisions in a chaotic world. Okay, listen up. I'm about to tell you something that changed my entire life. Seriously, like, flipped it upside down and put it back together stronger. You think you know chaos? You think you know uncertainty? I've seen it, I've lived it, and for years, I was just reacting, flailing, drowning in the noise, in the pressure, in the sheer madness of trying to make sense of a world that felt like it was actively trying to break me. Decisions? Forget it. It was pure panic, guesswork, or just doing whatever felt easiest in the moment. Which, let's be honest, usually led to more problems down the road. My life felt like a cheap rowboat caught in a hurricane. No rudder, just bouncing from one crushing wave to the next. I remember this one time. Years ago, before I understood any of this, I was presented with a massive opportunity. Huge, life-changing money, recognition, everything I thought I wanted. But it felt wrong. Every fiber of my being screamed pause. Screamed look closer. Screamed, is this really you? But the pressure was immense. Everyone around me was saying, go for it, what are you waiting for? This is your chance. My mind was a battlefield. Fear of missing out wrestling with this deep, unsettling intuition. I couldn't think straight. The chaos wasn't just outside, it was raging inside my own head. My thoughts were like a million screaming voices, each pulling me in a different direction. Doubt, greed, anxiety, excitement, a deafening storm. And in that moment, unable to find a quiet place to just be, I made a decision, a big one, based on the loudest voices, based on what looked good to the outside world. And for a while, it did look good. People congratulated me. I had the success. I had the things. But deep down, that gnawing feeling never left. It was like building a mansion on quicksand. Outwardly impressive, but fundamentally unstable. This world, it's loud. It's fast. It throws curveballs at you from angles you didn't even know existed. One minute you're cruising, the next you're blindsided by a job loss, a health scare, a broken relationship, or just the sheer overwhelming weight of global events. And in the middle of that, you're supposed to make good decisions? Wise ones? How? How do you find clarity when everything around you is a blur? How do you choose the right path when there are a million voices telling you which way to go? And none of them sound like your own? That's the core of it, isn't it? Learning to hear your voice. The quiet, rational one, amidst the deafening roar of external chaos and internal panic. I felt lost for so long. I was trying to control the uncontrollable, trying to force outcomes, trying to bend reality to my will. And reality? It just laughed. Every time I tried to tighten my grip, the sand just slipped through my fingers faster. It was exhausting, demoralizing. I was constantly reacting, constantly on the defensive, constantly feeling like I was losing the game. The chaos wasn't just something happening to me. It felt like it was who I was. A chaotic person living a chaotic life, making chaotic decisions that led to even more chaos. A vicious cycle, spinning faster and faster. Have you ever felt that? That feeling of being swept away? Like you're just along for the ride. And not a fun one? Like your decisions aren't really yours, but just knee-jerk reactions to whatever crisis is screaming the loudest? Yeah, I lived there. That was my address for years. It wasn't a pleasant neighborhood. It was loud, stressful, and frankly, dangerous. I was making choices that hurt me, hurt people I cared about, all because I didn't have the tools, the framework, the inner stillness to navigate the storm. Then, something shifted. It wasn't a single lightning bolt moment, more like a slow dawn. I stumbled into something ancient, something tested by time, forged in hardship, and yet, strangely, incredibly relevant right now. In this hyper-connected, always-on, anxiety-inducing world, it was a way of thinking, a way of being, that promised not to eliminate the chaos, because let's be real, that's never happening, but to change my relationship with it, to give me the power back, to put me back in the captain's chair of that little rowboat. It wasn't about controlling the waves, it was about learning to steer. This philosophy, it taught me where to focus my energy, where to place my attention, what was actually mine to control, and what I needed to simply acknowledge and let pass like clouds in the sky. This distinction, simple as it sounds, was the first crack of light in the darkness. I spent so much time and energy trying to control things that were fundamentally outside my power. Other people's opinions. The economy, the weather, traffic, global politics, even my own past. Trying to control the uncontrollable is the fastest route to misery and poor decisions. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the more you lose. The real power, the true locus of control, I learned, isn't out there, it's in here. Tap's chest. It's in your mind, your judgments, your reactions, your decisions. That's it. That's the whole ballgame. You can't control what happens, but you can control how you respond. You can control the meaning you assign to things. You can control your intentions, your efforts, your character. This wasn't some fluffy self-help mantra. This was a rigorous, logical, battle-tested approach to life. It gave me a filter, a way to cut through the noise, a way to see things clearly, even when the world felt like a swirling vortex of confusion. Imagine this. Two people get stuck in the same terrible traffic jam. One person is honking their horn, yelling, banging the steering wheel, getting their blood pressure through the roof, arriving at their destination stressed, angry, and ready to snap at the first person they see. The other person? They sigh, maybe put on some music or an audiobook, accept that they are stuck, and use the time to think, to listen, maybe even to just breathe. Same external event, wildly different internal experiences and, crucially, different states of mind for making the next decision. The first person is in a state of reactive chaos, the second is in a state of proactive calm, ready to make a rational decision about how to proceed once the traffic clears. That traffic jam is a tiny microcosm of life in a chaotic world. Events happen, things go wrong, people behave badly, the unexpected becomes the norm. And most of us, myself included for the longest time, react like the first driver. We get angry, frustrated, scared, and then we make decisions from that place of emotional turmoil. And guess what kind of decisions come from turmoil? More turmoil. This philosophy, it teaches you to hit the pause button between the event and your reaction. That tiny pause, that sliver of space is where your power lies. That's where wisdom is born. Something happens. Your initial instinct might be fear, anger, or despair, but in that pause, you can ask yourself, is this reaction helpful? Is it based on reality or just my interpretation? Is this event something I can control? What is the rational thing to do here, regardless of how I feel? It's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about understanding them, acknowledging them, but not letting them drive the bus. Your reason should be the driver. Your emotions are just passengers. Important passengers, sure, but they don't get to steer. Think about the biggest, most stressful decisions you've faced. The ones that kept you up at night. The ones that felt like they had the power to make or break your future. How much of that stress came from the situation itself? And how much came from your fear of the situation? Your anxiety about the outcome? Your worry about what others would think? For me, it was almost entirely the latter. The external problem was often tough. Yes, but my internal reaction amplified it tenfold, turning a challenge into an existential crisis. Learning to distinguish between what is up to us and what is not up to us is the bedrock of navigating chaos. What is up to us? Our thoughts, our judgments, our desires, our aversions, our actions, our character. What is not up to us? Pretty much everything else. Our health, to a large extent. Our reputation, wealth, other people's behavior, external events. Trying to control the uncontrollable is like trying to paddle upstream in a hurricane, exhausting and futile. Focusing on what you can control, your own mind and actions, is like finding a calm cove in the storm. It's where you find your stability, your agency, your power to choose wisely. This understanding was a game changer. It didn't make problems disappear, but it changed where I put my energy. Instead of raging against the unfairness of a situation I couldn't change, I started asking, okay, this is happening, it's not ideal. What is the best way for me to respond? Given my values, what is the rational, virtuous course of action right now? This single shift in focus was like turning down the volume on the external noise and finally being able to hear my own inner compass. It's tough, though. It requires practice. Like any skill, it feels awkward and unnatural at first. Our default setting is often reaction, not reflection. We are wired to respond instantly, emotionally, especially to perceived threats. Retraining that instinct takes effort. It takes conscious repetition, but the payoff? Immense. The ability to pause, to evaluate, to choose your response rather than being dictated by instinct or external pressure. That is true freedom. That is the foundation of making wise decisions in a world that seems determined to make you choose foolishly. It's about building an inner fortress, not to keep the world out, but to have a safe space within yourself where you can think clearly and act deliberately, no matter what storm is raging outside. This inner work is the most important work you will ever do. It's not flashy, it doesn't get likes or shares, but it builds resilience, it builds clarity, it builds wisdom, it gives you the power to navigate the chaos, not by controlling it, but by controlling yourself, by becoming the calm eye of the storm. But how do you actually do that? How do you build that inner fortress when everything feels like it's falling apart? How do you find that pause button when your adrenaline is pumping and your mind is racing? That's the real challenge, isn't it? And that's where the real transformation begins. It's not just about knowing what to do, but how to train yourself to do it instinctively, habitually, even under immense pressure. Ready to dive deeper? Because what I'm about to share next isn't just philosophy. It's a training manual for life. Hold on. Before we go any further, let me ask you something real. When the world feels like it's spinning out of control, where do you instinctively look for answers? Do you look outside yourself, hoping someone or something will fix it? Or do you turn inward, searching for strength and clarity within? Be honest. For most of my life, I was frantically searching outside, and it got me nowhere good. The external world will always be chaotic. Relying on it for stability is like building your house on a raft in the middle of the ocean. It will rock and sway with every wave. True stability, the kind that allows for wise decisions, has to be built on bedrock, and that bedrock is within you. So, how do you build that bedrock? It starts with understanding the fundamental nature of reality, or at least, accepting the bit we can be certain of, that things are constantly changing. Much is outside our control, and our own minds are our most powerful, yet often most unruly, tools. This isn't pessimism, it's realism. And realism is the starting point for effective action. You wouldn't try to sail across the ocean without understanding currents and weather patterns, would you? Navigating life's chaos is no different. You need to understand the forces at play, both external and internal. The ancient wisdom I discovered provides a framework for this. It's not about positive thinking or manifesting your dreams, though having a positive outlook and goals are great. It's about robust, rational thinking that prepares you for reality, not some idealized version of it. It's about training your mind to be disciplined, clear, and resilient. One of the first, most powerful practices is learning to observe your thoughts and judgments without immediately identifying with them. Imagine your mind is a river, and your thoughts are leaves floating on the surface. Most of us are desperately trying to grab onto those leaves, examine them, judge them, sometimes even trying to paddle with them. The result is getting swept downstream by whatever thought happens to come along. The practice is to simply sit on the bank and watch the leaves float by. A thought appears. This is a disaster. Observe it. Ah, there is the thought. This is a disaster. Don't argue with it. Don't amplify it. Don't immediately believe it as absolute truth. Just notice it. This simple act of observation creates that crucial space between the event, or the thought about the event, and your reaction. This isn't easy. Our minds are loud and insistent. They constantly want to tell us stories about what's happening. Stories often colored by fear, past experiences, and limiting beliefs. Learning to observe these stories without getting tangled up in them takes consistent effort. It's like strength training for your mind. You start small, maybe just for a few minutes each day. You notice when your mind starts spinning tales of doom or getting caught up in pointless worries. You gently bring your attention back to simply observing. There's the worry thought. Okay, letting it pass. Another critical piece is clarifying your values. In a chaotic world, it's easy to lose your bearings, to forget what truly matters amidst the noise and distractions. What principles are non-negotiable for you? Is it integrity, kindness, courage, wisdom, justice. When you are clear on your core values, they become your compass. When faced with a difficult decision, you can ask yourself, which choice aligns best with my values? Which choice allows me to act in accordance with the person I want to be? Regardless of the outcome, this isn't about achieving a specific result, it's about acting rightly. The outcome is, to a large extent, outside your control. Your actions and intentions are not. Let me give you an example. I had a friend, incredibly talented, who was offered a high-paying job that required him to compromise his ethical standards. It was a massive temptation, especially because he was struggling financially. The chaotic external pressure was immense: bills to pay, expectations from family, the seductive promise of security and comfort. His mind was a whirlwind of justifications and fears. But he had spent time clarifying his core values, and integrity was at the top of his list. He paused. He observed the thoughts swirling in his head, the greed, the fear of missing out, the rationalizations, and then he asked himself, which choice aligns with my value of integrity? Which choice allows me to look myself in the mirror? It was incredibly difficult. He agonized over it, but ultimately, he turned the job down. Did that eliminate his financial struggles? No. Did it make the external chaos disappear? Absolutely not. But it gave him something far more valuable: inner peace and a sense of self-respect. He had made a decision based on his values, not on external pressure or immediate gratification. And that decision, while seemingly creating more immediate difficulty, set him on a path towards opportunities that were more aligned with who he was, ultimately leading to a more sustainable and fulfilling life. This is the power of using your values as your guide in chaotic times. It's not the easy path, but it's the path that leads to a stronger, more authentic you. Training your mind to focus on what you can control and clarifying your values are powerful tools. But there's another layer, something that brings it all together and makes it truly practical in the face of real-world chaos: understanding the nature of adversity itself. We tend to see challenges, setbacks, and difficulties as inherently bad. We resist them, we complain about them, we wish they hadn't happened. But what if I told you that these moments of chaos, these difficulties, are not obstacles to your growth, but the very fuel for it? What if the universe isn't happening to you, but happening for you, presenting you with exactly the challenges you need to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient? This is a radical shift in perspective. I know, it goes against our natural inclination to avoid pain and seek comfort. But think about it. When have you learned the most about yourself? When have you experienced the most significant growth? Was it during periods of smooth sailing? Or during times of struggle? For me, and for everyone I've ever known who has achieved anything meaningful, it's been through facing and overcoming adversity. The difficulties forged the strength. The setbacks taught the lessons. The chaos revealed the inner resilience I didn't know I had. This doesn't mean you should seek out hardship, or that bad things aren't genuinely painful. Of course they are, but when they inevitably arrive, this philosophy teaches you to see them not just as problems, but as opportunities. Opportunities to practice patience, courage, resilience, wisdom, opportunities to test your values, opportunities to see what you are truly made of. Consider a difficult conversation you have to have. Your instinct might be to avoid it, to dread it, to see it as a purely negative experience. But what if you viewed it as an opportunity? An opportunity to practice clear communication? To practice active listening? To practice maintaining your composure under pressure? To practice asserting yourself respectfully? By shifting your perspective, you move from being a passive victim of a difficult situation to an active participant, focused on how you can use this moment to train yourself, to grow, to embody your values. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's easy to talk about these ideas when things are calm. The real test, the real practice, happens in the fire, when the pressure is on, when your emotions are running high. Can you remember to pause? Can you remember to focus on what you can control? Can you remember your values? Can you see the challenge not just as a problem, but as an opportunity for growth? It takes effort, it takes intention, it takes practice, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. That space between stimulus and response widens. Your ability to observe your thoughts without judgment strengthens. your values become a clearer guide, and you begin to see the chaos not as a personal attack, but as the natural state of the external world, a world that provides the perfect training ground for developing inner strength and making wise decisions. But there's one more piece to this puzzle, something that makes all of this not just bearable, but truly transformative, something that turns the chaos from a threat into something else entirely. And it's something most people completely overlook. Okay, this next part is crucial. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability of life, like you're just bracing for the next hit, this is for you. We've talked about focusing on what you can control and seeing challenges as opportunities. But there's a deeper layer here, a way to actually find peace, maybe even a strange kind of joy, within the chaos itself. It sounds impossible, I know, but stick with me. The external world is inherently unpredictable. That earthquake wasn't on your schedule. That job loss blindsided you. That medical diagnosis came out of nowhere. The market crashed. The relationship ended. These events happen, and our natural inclination is to resist them, to fight against them, to lament how unfair they are. This resistance, this fight against reality, is the primary source of our suffering. Think about it. The event itself is one thing. Painful, difficult, disruptive, yes, but how much of your suffering comes from wishing it hadn't happened? From replaying it in your mind? From dwelling on the unfairness of it? From worrying about all the potential negative consequences? That's the internal resistance at work. That's the mental fight against what is. And you know what? You will always lose that fight. Reality doesn't care about your preferences. This philosophy teaches a radical acceptance of reality. Not resignation, not giving up, but a clear-eyed acknowledgement of what is, without judgment or resistance. It's about understanding that some things are simply facts of life, part of the unpredictable nature of existence. The rain falls, the tide goes out, people have bad days, things break, plans change. The more you can accept these realities, the less power they have to disturb your inner peace. This doesn't mean you don't take action to improve things or navigate difficulties. Far from it. Acceptance is not passive. It's the necessary first step to effective action. You can't solve a problem until you fully accept that the problem exists. You can't navigate a storm until you accept that you are in one. Once you accept what is, you free up all the energy you were spending on resistance and can direct it towards what you can control, your response. Imagine you're sailing, and a storm hits. Resistance would be raging at the sky, cursing the waves, wishing you were somewhere else. Acceptance is saying, okay, there's a storm. This is the reality right now. What's the best way to steer the boat in these conditions? How do I secure the mast? How do I keep us afloat? One approach is fueled by futile anger and leads to panic. The other is fueled by clear-eyed realism and leads to effective action. This radical acceptance extends not just to external events, but to your own emotions and thoughts. You feel fear? Accept it. Okay, I am feeling fear right now. Don't judge it. Don't try to push it away. Just notice it. By accepting the emotion, its power over you diminishes. You can then choose how to act, even while feeling afraid. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting rightly despite feeling fear. This is where we find that strange joy I mentioned. When you stop fighting reality, you start to see the world as it is, not as you wish it were. And in that clear vision, you can find a deep sense of peace. You realize that your happiness and your ability to make wise decisions are not dependent on external circumstances being exactly the way you want them. They're dependent on your inner state, your mindset, your character. This is liberation. True freedom isn't about having everything go your way. It's about being okay when it doesn't. It's about being able to navigate any situation with inner stability and clarity. It's about building a life that is anti-fragile, one that doesn't just withstand shocks, but actually gets stronger because of them. Think back to that difficult decision I faced years ago. The one I made based on external pressure and fear. If I had understood this then, if I had practiced acceptance of the uncertainty, if I had focused on my values and what was truly within my control, I would have made a different choice. It wouldn't have been easier in the moment, but it would have led to a path aligned with my inner compass. A path where my decisions built, rather than eroded, my sense of self. Making wise decisions in a chaotic world isn't about finding a magic formula to predict the future or control external events. It's about cultivating an inner environment, a mind that is calm, clear, and resilient, no matter what storm is raging outside. It's about understanding what is truly important, focusing your energy on what you can control, accepting what you cannot, and seeing every challenge as an opportunity to practice being the best version of yourself. This is a lifelong practice. There will be days when you forget, days when you get swept away by the chaos, days when you react instead of respond. That's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's about continuously coming back to these principles, dusting yourself off, and trying again. Each time you pause, each time you choose your response, each time you act in accordance with your values despite external pressure, you are strengthening that inner bedrock. You are becoming more resilient, more clear-eyed, and more capable of making wise decisions in a world that desperately needs them. The world will always be chaotic. That's a given, but your experience of that world, and your ability to navigate it effectively, is entirely within your power. It starts now. It starts with your very next thought, your very next reaction, your very next decision. The choice is yours. Will you be tossed about by the waves? Or will you become the calm eye of the storm? This isn't just about surviving the chaos. It's about thriving in it. It's about finding peace and purpose not despite the difficulties, but because of how you choose to face them. This is the ultimate freedom, the ultimate power, and it's available to you, right now. So, are you ready to stop being a passenger and start being the pilot? Are you ready to build that inner fortress and navigate the storm with strength and clarity? The tools are ancient, but they are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. Perhaps even more so. The journey starts with a single step. Will you take it? How to find unshakable peace when everything is falling apart, seriously. Alright, you said yes. Good, because this isn't just talk. This is action. This is about getting your hands dirty with your own mind. We just talked about building that inner fortress. Focusing on what you control, accepting reality, and seeing challenges as opportunities. Sounds great on paper, right? But how do you actually do that when your world is exploding? When the news is terrifying, your bank account is dwindling, and a relationship is on the rocks? That's where the real work begins. And it starts with a fundamental shift in how you view, well, everything. Let's get practical. One of the biggest hurdles to making wise decisions in chaos is the sheer volume of noise. The constant stream of information, opinions, demands, comparisons, social media, news headlines, the guy next to you complaining. It's a relentless barrage, and it's designed to pull you out of yourself, to make you react, to make you feel inadequate or anxious or angry. It feeds the external chaos and amplifies the internal. So, step 1 in practical application. Aggressively guard your attention. Your attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Where you direct your attention determines your reality. If you constantly focus on everything that's wrong with the world, everything you lack, everything you fear, guess what kind of mental landscape you're building? A desolate, terrifying one. If you deliberately choose to focus on what you can do, what you are grateful for, what is good, what you can build, what kind of person you want to be, even in the midst of difficulty, you create a different reality within yourself. This isn't about burying your head in the sand. It's about strategic focus. Acknowledge the difficulties. Yes. Be informed. Yes. But don't marinate in the negativity. Don't let the external noise dictate your internal state. Curate what you consume. Limit exposure to things that are purely designed to provoke fear or anger without offering any constructive path forward. Unfollow. Unsubscribe. Mute. Turn off. Be ruthless in protecting your mental space. Treat your mind like a garden. Are you letting weeds of anxiety and negativity take over? Or are you cultivating the plants of focus, gratitude, and resilience? I learned this the hard way. For years, I was addicted to the news cycle, to checking my phone every 2 minutes, to knowing every disaster happening everywhere, and I was a nervous wreck. My decisions were driven by fear and urgency, by whatever crisis was currently screaming loudest on my screen. I thought I was being responsible, being informed. I was just poisoning my own well. When I started deliberately limiting my exposure to the relentless negativity. When I started choosing to spend that time reading something uplifting, or talking to someone I cared about, or just sitting in silence. The shift was profound. It was like turning down the volume on the world and finally being able to hear myself think again. Try it, seriously, even for a day. See how it changes your internal landscape. Now, let's talk about decision-making when the pressure is intense. We've all been there. A deadline is looming, money is tight, someone you love is in pain, and you have to make a choice that feels like it could change everything. In these moments, your mind can become a chaotic mess of fear, urgency, and conflicting impulses. This is where the practice of the pause becomes not just helpful, but essential. Something happens. The urge to react immediately is powerful. Stop, just for a second, take a breath, create a tiny gap between the stimulus and your response. In that gap, ask yourself, what am I feeling? What thoughts are coming up? Are they based on facts or fears? What is actually within my control in this exact moment? And what is the wisest, most rational, most virtuous action I can take right now, regardless of the outcome? This isn't easy when your heart is pounding and your palms are sweating. It takes training. It's like building muscle memory. You have to practice it in low-stakes situations first. Practice pausing before sending that angry email. Practice pausing before buying something on impulse. Practice pausing before reacting defensively to criticism. The more you practice in the small moments, the more likely you are to be able to access that pause in the big, chaotic ones. Let me tell you about a time this saved me. I was in a business negotiation that went south, hard and fast. The other side did something completely unexpected and, frankly, unethical. My immediate reaction was pure rage. My mind screamed, retaliate, burn this bridge, they can't get away with this. My hand was hovering over the phone, ready to fire off a scorching message. But years of trying to practice this pause kicked in. Just a breath, one conscious breath. In that instant, I didn't lose the anger, but I gained a sliver of space. I asked myself, if I send this message, what is the likely outcome? More conflict? Damaged reputation? Does this align with the kind of person I want to be in business? Someone who acts with integrity, even when others don't? The answer was clear. Sending the message would have felt satisfying for about 30 seconds, and then it would have created a whole new level of chaos and regret. It would have been a decision born of raw emotion, not wisdom. Instead, I put the phone down. I walked away from my desk. I let the initial wave of anger pass. And later, with a clearer head, I drafted a calm, firm, and professional response that addressed the issue without resorting to personal attacks or burning the bridge completely. Did it magically fix everything? No, but it allowed me to navigate a chaotic and difficult situation with dignity and reason, preserving options and my reputation, rather than making a rash decision that would have caused more damage. That pause, that deliberate choice not to be ruled by the immediate, chaotic emotion, it was everything. This practice of pausing and asking clarifying questions connects directly to another crucial element, distinguishing between events and your judgments about events. This is profound, and once you grasp it, it's incredibly liberating. An event happens. You lose your job. The event is losing your job. That's a fact. The chaos often comes from the judgments we immediately pile on top of that fact. This is a disaster. I'm a failure. I'll never find another job. My life is over. These judgments are not facts. They are stories you are telling yourself about the facts. The power lies in recognizing that you can question these judgments. You can challenge the stories. Is losing your job really a disaster? Or is it a difficult event that presents new challenges and potentially new opportunities? Are you really a failure? Or are you a person who lost a job? Something that happens to countless competent people for reasons often outside their control? This isn't semantic games. This is about reclaiming control of your internal narrative. The event happens, external, largely uncontrollable. Your initial judgment pops up, internal, influenced by your past, fears, beliefs. The practice is to observe the judgment and then consciously, deliberately, offer alternative, more rational interpretations. Okay, I lost my job. That's a difficult situation. My mind is immediately telling me I'm a failure and everything is awful. But is that true? What are the facts? I lost the job. What could this mean? It could mean it wasn't the right fit. It could mean there are better opportunities out there. It definitely means I need to take action to find a new one. The judgment, I'm a failure, is a story. The fact is, I need to find a new job. This is active work. It's not passive observation. It's about using your reason to challenge your automatic, often negative, judgments. It's about rewriting the script your mind wants to play on repeat. Especially when chaos hits, the initial, fearful judgment is often like a reflex. The wise decision comes from applying reason after the reflex. This practice directly combats the feeling of being overwhelmed by chaos. When you strip away the layers of fearful judgments, the situation often becomes clearer, more manageable. You move from reacting to a terrifying story in your head to responding to the actual facts of the situation. And facts, while sometimes difficult, are rarely as overwhelming as the elaborate, fear-fueled narratives we construct. Have you ever noticed how much stress comes not from the present moment, but from worrying about a future that hasn't happened yet? Fueled by negative judgments about the present, we catastrophize. We play out worst-case scenarios in vivid detail, and our bodies and minds react as if those scenarios are real. Right now, this is your mind creating chaos where none, yet, exists. Learning to bring your attention back to the present moment is a powerful antidote to this. What is happening right now? Not what might happen tomorrow, or next week, but this very second? Are you safe? Can you breathe? What small, immediate task needs your attention? Focusing on the present anchors you. It pulls you out of the hypothetical, fear-driven future and into the reality you can actually deal with. This practice of being present, of focusing on the now, is deeply connected to making wise decisions. Decisions are always made in the present moment. You can plan for the future, learn from the past, but the act of choosing, the act of steering the boat, happens only now. If your mind is lost in hypothetical future storms, you can't effectively navigate the choppy waters you are currently in. It takes discipline to repeatedly pull your mind back to the present, especially when it wants to race ahead with worry. But it's a muscle that gets stronger with use. Simple practices like focusing on your breath for a minute, or fully engaging in a simple task like washing dishes or walking, can help train your mind to stay anchored in the present. These tools, guarding your attention, practicing the pause, distinguishing events from judgments, focusing on the present, are not abstract philosophical concepts. They are practical techniques, mental exercises, that you can use every single day. Starting right now, they are your tools for navigating the inevitable chaos of life, for finding clarity amidst the confusion, and for making decisions that are not just reactive, but truly wise and aligned with who you want to be. It's not about having all the answers or controlling every outcome. It's about cultivating the inner strength and clarity to handle whatever comes your way, to make the best possible decision you can with the information you have, in the moment you are in, while staying true to your core values. That is true mastery. That is true freedom. But there's still a piece missing. We've talked about internal discipline, but what about our interactions with others in a chaotic world? People are unpredictable. They can be difficult, irrational, even hostile. How do we maintain our inner peace and make wise decisions when dealing with the chaos that other people bring into our lives? That's a whole other level of challenge, and there's a powerful, often counterintuitive, Stoic approach to this that can completely change how you experience your relationships and interactions. You won't believe how much simpler navigating difficult people becomes once you understand this. Alright, buckle up, because we're about to tackle one of the biggest sources of chaos in our lives: other people. Let's be honest, the world would be a lot less chaotic if everyone just behaved rationally, according to our preferences, right? But they don't. People are complex, driven by their own fears, desires, and judgments, and their actions, often unpredictable and frustrating, can throw our carefully constructed plans into disarray and test our patience to the limit. Making wise decisions when dealing with difficult people is a masterclass in practical philosophy. Our natural tendency when someone is being difficult or acting in a way we dislike is to get angry, frustrated, or hurt. We focus on their behavior, their perceived flaws, their unfairness. We want them to change. We want them to see things our way. And this focus on trying to control or change another person is, you guessed it, a recipe for suffering and poor decision-making. Just like trying to control the weather, trying to control another person's thoughts, feelings, or actions is an exercise in futility, and it drains your energy, poisons your peace, and distracts you from what you can control. So, how do you navigate the chaos of other people's behavior and still make wise decisions? The Stoic approach is radical, and it's incredibly effective. It starts with understanding this. People's actions are a result of their own judgments and beliefs. Even if those judgments are flawed or mistaken, when someone acts in a way you perceive as wrong or hurtful, they are acting based on what they believe is right or good in that moment. Given their understanding of the situation, they are not deliberately trying to harm you. Usually, they are simply acting from their own internal framework. However misguided it might seem to you. This isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about understanding its root, and this understanding leads to a profound shift, from anger and blame directed at the other person, to a kind of pity or compassion for their flawed judgment. Think about it. Would you be angry at someone for having a fever? No. You'd recognize they are suffering from an illness. In the same way, when someone acts from ignorance or mistaken beliefs about what is truly good or bad, they are, in a sense, suffering from a fever of the mind. When you see someone's difficult behavior through this lens, as a result of their own internal state and judgments, rather than a deliberate attack on you, it changes your emotional response. The intensity of the anger or frustration often lessens. You can detach emotionally from their behavior and focus on your own response, which is the only thing you can control. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it powerfully: when you are distressed by an external thing, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your judgment about it. This applies powerfully to other people. It's not their behavior that makes you angry, it's your judgment that their behavior is unacceptable, unfair, or malicious. Change the judgment, and you change the emotional response. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. Far from it. You can still take action to protect yourself, to set boundaries, to address the situation, but you do it from a place of rational clarity, not emotional reactivity. You can firmly say no to an unreasonable demand without being consumed by anger at the person making it. You can address a conflict with a focus on finding a rational solution, rather than getting caught up in assigning blame. Here's a personal example. I had a colleague who was constantly taking credit for my work. It was infuriating. My initial reaction was outrage and a burning desire to expose them, to make them pay. My mind was filled with angry fantasies of confrontation. But then I tried applying this principle. I thought, why is this person doing this? It's likely from a place of insecurity, a belief that they need to elevate themselves by diminishing others. They likely genuinely believe, in some twisted way, that this behavior is serving them, that it's a necessary path to success. It's a flawed judgment, a form of suffering. Seeing it this way didn't make their behavior okay, but it took the personal sting out of it. It wasn't about me, it was about them and their internal struggles. This allowed me to move from reactive anger to a more strategic mindset. Instead of confronting them emotionally, which would have likely escalated things and accomplished little, I focused on what I could control, documenting my contributions meticulously, communicating my progress clearly to my superiors, and adjusting how I collaborated with that specific colleague to minimize opportunities for them to misrepresent my work. The focus shifted from trying to change their unethical behavior to protecting myself and my work through wise, proactive decisions about my own actions. This principle of understanding others' actions as flowing from their own judgments is incredibly powerful in navigating relationships of all kinds, with family, friends, colleagues, even strangers. It allows you to detach from the emotional turmoil their behavior might provoke and respond from a place of wisdom and self-possession. You realize their internal chaos doesn't have to become your internal chaos. Another crucial aspect of making wise decisions when dealing with others in a chaotic world is managing your expectations. We often suffer because reality doesn't conform to our expectations. We expect people to be rational, fair, and considerate all the time. And when they aren't, we are shocked. disappointed, and frustrated, the Stoics practiced premeditation of evils, contemplating potential difficulties and negative outcomes. Not in a morbid way, but to prepare themselves mentally. This includes contemplating how others might behave. Before a difficult meeting, before a challenging conversation, before entering a potentially chaotic environment, take a moment to consider, what are the potential difficulties? How might others behave? What are the worst, realistic, ways this could go? By mentally rehearsing these possibilities, you reduce their power to shock and overwhelm you if they occur. You are mentally prepared. You can then focus on how you will choose to respond, no matter what happens. This isn't about assuming the worst, it's about being prepared for whatever happens. It's about building mental resilience by acknowledging the unpredictable nature of the world and the people in it. When someone acts exactly as you mentally prepared for them to act, their behavior is less likely to derail you or lead you to make a reactive, unwise decision. Let's put this all together. Making wise decisions in a chaotic world, especially when dealing with the chaos of other people, comes down to 1. Guarding your attention and focusing on what is constructive and within your control. 2. Practicing the pause between stimulus and response to create space for reason. 3. Distinguishing between events and your judgments about them, and challenging those judgments. 4. Focusing on the present moment rather than getting lost in hypothetical fears. 5. Understanding that others' actions flow from their own judgments, fostering a kind of rational detachment and compassion. 6. Managing your expectations by contemplating potential difficulties, including difficult behavior from others, to be mentally prepared. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming the master of your emotions, not their slave. It's about using your reason and your values to guide your decisions, rather than being tossed about by external events or the unpredictable behavior of others. This is the path to finding unshakable peace, not by eliminating the chaos, but by building an inner core that is immune to its effects. It's about becoming an island of calm in a sea of turmoil. And that inner calm, that clarity, is the fertile ground from which wise decisions grow. The journey is ongoing. There is no finish line. But every time you choose to pause, every time you choose your response, every time you see the world and the people in it with clear eyes, you are walking the path of wisdom. You are reclaiming your power. You are building a life of resilience and purpose, one deliberate decision at a time, no matter how loud the chaos gets. But what does this all look like in the face of the really big stuff? The truly life-altering crises? How do you apply these principles when your entire world feels like it's collapsing? That requires a level of acceptance and inner fortitude that goes even deeper. You won't believe the perspective shift that makes even the worst moments bearable, maybe even meaningful. How to turn disaster into your greatest strength. It's not what you think. You stayed. Good. Because this is where it all comes together. We've talked about guarding your attention, pausing before reacting, challenging your judgments, staying present, and navigating the chaos of other people. Those are the building blocks. They help you handle the daily storms, the choppy waters. But what about the tsunamis? What about when disaster strikes? A serious illness, the death of a loved one, the complete collapse of your finances or your business. How do you make wise decisions? How do you find any peace when your world isn't just chaotic, but feels like it's shattering into a million pieces? This is the ultimate test. This is where the true power of this ancient wisdom reveals itself. And it requires facing the most difficult truth of all, that some things are truly catastrophic, truly devastating, and utterly outside your control. You can't pause your way out of grief. You can't challenge your judgment away from a terminal diagnosis. You can't simply choose to be okay when everything you've built is gone. Or can you? This isn't about denying the pain. This isn't about pretending everything is fine when it's not. That would be foolish, not stoic. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding them and not letting them rule you. When disaster hits, it is natural and human to feel grief, fear, despair, anger. Allow yourself to feel those emotions. Acknowledge them. But then, and this is the crucial part, Use the tools we've discussed to prevent those emotions from completely overwhelming you and dictating your decisions. When faced with true disaster, the principles we've discussed become even more vital. Guarding your attention becomes paramount, shielding yourself from the endless loop of despair and focusing on the immediate reality. Practicing the pause, even if it's just a micro pause between waves of anguish, gives you a sliver of space to breathe. Distinguishing the event from your judgments becomes a lifeline. The event is terrible. Yes, but the story you tell yourself about what it means for your entire existence can either crush you or, believe it or not, become a source of unexpected strength. Here's the key: the radical shift that turns disaster from a purely destructive force into something else entirely, amor fati. A Latin phrase meaning, love of fate. Sounds crazy, right? Love the terrible things that happen? No, not in a masochistic way. It means to not just accept what happens, but to embrace it, to see everything that occurs, the good and the bad, the easy and the difficult, as necessary threads in the tapestry of your life, as the raw material for your growth and development. When disaster strikes, your fate has dealt you a hand, a terrible hand. Perhaps you didn't choose it, you didn't want it, but it is your hand. And the philosophy asks you, can you not just accept this hand, but work with it? Can you find a way to incorporate this terrible event into the story of your life in a way that makes you stronger, wiser, more compassionate? This isn't about saying, everything happens for a reason, in a glib way. It's about recognizing that since this difficult thing has happened, it is now part of your reality. And within that new, difficult reality, your power lies in how you choose to respond, what meaning you choose to create, and what you choose to build from the ruins. Think of a blacksmith. They don't get upset when the metal is hard and requires tremendous force to shape. They see it as the nature of the material. They heat it, they hammer it, they shape it through intense pressure and heat. The fire and the hammer are not obstacles to the sword, they are essential to its creation. Your character is the metal. The chaotic, difficult events of life are the fire and the hammer. They are not obstacles to becoming a stronger, wiser person. They are the very forces that forge you. When you lose everything, the external chaos is total. Your home, your job, your health, a loved one, gone. In that moment, when there is nothing left to control externally, you are stripped down to your core, and you discover what truly remains. What remains is your capacity for reason, your capacity for courage, your capacity for love, your capacity to choose your response. This is your inner citadel, the one thing that cannot be taken from you by any external event. This perspective shift is not easy. It requires immense courage and practice. It's about finding strength in the face of powerlessness. It's about focusing on the only thing that truly belongs to you in that moment, your inner self, your character, and your choice of how to face the unbearable. I saw this firsthand during a period of my life when everything I thought was stable crumbled. Relationships ended, financial security vanished, and health issues arose, all at once. It felt like a coordinated attack by the universe. The initial shock, the pain, the fear, it was overwhelming. I felt completely lost, rudderless in a storm of epic proportions. For a time, I just let myself sink. I wallowed in self-pity and despair. I made terrible decisions born of panic and hopelessness. But then, slowly, painfully, I started to remember the lessons I was trying to embody. I forced myself to pause. Even when all I wanted to do was run or hide, I started, little by little, to untangle the facts of the situation from the catastrophic stories my mind was weaving. Yes, this terrible thing happened. Yes, I feel immense pain. But does this mean my life is over? Does this mean I am a failure? Or does it mean I am a person facing an incredibly difficult challenge? I started focusing on the tiniest things I could control. My morning routine, even if it was just getting out of bed and making a cup of tea. What I chose to read or listen to. Who I chose to spend time with, or not spend time with. Small, deliberate choices made in the face of overwhelming chaos. And with each small choice, a tiny flicker of agency returned. Then came the harder part, the radical acceptance. The amor fati. This is happening. It's terrible. I hate that it's happening. But it is happening. How can I meet this moment? How can I go through this fire not just surviving, but being refined by it? What can I learn? What strength can I find that I didn't know I had? How can I use this experience to become a more compassionate, more resilient, more understanding person? This wasn't about magically making the pain disappear. The pain was real, the loss was real, but by shifting my focus from, why is this happening to me? To, now that this is happening, how will I choose to be? Everything changed. The chaos was still there, externally, but it no longer had absolute power over my internal state. I was no longer just a victim of circumstance, I was an agent. Choosing my response, choosing my character, in the face of that circumstance. This is the deepest level of making wise decisions in chaos. It's not just about choosing the right action in a difficult moment, it's about choosing the right attitude towards whatever life throws at you. It's about cultivating an inner resilience that is impervious to external fortune. And the most incredible, counterintuitive part? By embracing your fate, by accepting even the most terrible events as part of the fabric of your life, you find a profound sense of peace. Not happiness in the face of tragedy, but a deep, quiet peace that comes from aligning yourself with reality, from no longer fighting against the way things are. You become like the ancient tree that bends with the wind instead of breaking. This isn't easy, it's the work of a lifetime. There will be days when you feel overwhelmed, when the chaos feels too great, when you forget everything we've talked about. That's okay. Be patient with yourself. Remember the blacksmith. The metal isn't shaped in a single blow. It takes repeated heating and hammering. Your resilience is built in the same way, through repeated effort, through returning to these principles again and again, especially when it's hardest. Making wise decisions in a chaotic world isn't about controlling the chaos. It's about controlling yourself. It's about building an inner citadel of reason, values, and acceptance that no external storm can breach. It's about finding freedom not in having everything your way, but in knowing that you can handle anything that comes your way. With dignity, courage, and wisdom. The world will keep spinning. Chaos will continue to erupt. Unexpected challenges will arise. People will frustrate you. Disasters may strike. You cannot stop these things from happening. But you can choose how you meet them. You can choose to react from fear and be tossed about by the storm. Or you can choose to respond from a place of inner strength and clarity, steering your ship through the waves. The path is clear. The tools are simple, though not easy to master. Guard your attention. Practice the pause. Challenge your judgments. Stay present. Understand others. Manage expectations. Embrace your fate. This is the work. This is the journey. This is how you stop being a victim of the chaotic world and become the architect of your inner life. Capable of making wise, meaningful decisions no matter what madness surrounds you. The choice, as always, is yours. Will you just watch the storm? Or will you learn to sail through it? Your move.